Member Trolley?
Here.
Member Hill?
Here.
Member Jessica?
Here.
Member Walker?
Here.
Member Brush?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Item 2 on the agenda are the approval of 2 sets of minutes. The first is from the last July meeting that was here, and the second set was from the August 28th committee, the whole meeting that was at Municipal Services Building. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the July 16th minutes? And does anyone have any comments or changes?
Yes and no in my case.
Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the July 16th minutes as proposed?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the July 16th minutes are approved. The second set of minutes are the August 28th committee, the whole meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at them? And are there any additions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the August 28th minutes as proposed?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The August 28th minutes are approved. Third item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on items not on the agenda. And we do have the pleasure of a number of members of the public here tonight, but I think they're all here for agenda items. So seeing no one raising their hand, we will move on to agenda item number 4, which is various issues concerning the DEERPATH golf course. And my understanding is the first item is the state of the industry reports to be presented by representatives from Kemper Sport.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Skinner. I'm the CEO of Kemper Sports. I also want to introduce a couple of my colleagues in the room. Mike Williams, who's our Regional Operating Executive, Brendan McCarthy, our Regional Marketing Executive, and of course, you know Rick, the General Manager at DEERPATH. So I want to thank you for the opportunity. I understood there were some questions at the last meeting, and I think this is a good opportunity. We're getting close to closing out our second season at DEERPATH, and I know there are a lot of new faces on the board who weren't here when we started, so we thought we'd take a quick opportunity just to describe really where we are, a little bit of the state of the industry and what we've been able to accomplish so far. I get a lot of questions in town. I live in town, as you know, so I get questions all the time at the football games, at the laundromat as to, you know, what's going on at DEERPATH. And it's a little bit of a unique situation in that we don't manage all of the operations at DEERPATH. Just for those of you who don't know, we were hired 2 years ago to hire a general manager to take charge of all the marketing and the green fee revenue generation, merchandise sales, and just recently when Bluffington's left to take over food and beverage. The city continues to maintain the golf course, maintain the clubhouse, all the starters and rangers and golf shop staff, our city staff, and the city does all the accounting. So it's a little bit of a hybrid for us, but we think it's worked well the first couple of years. When we were brought on, the board and Mary gave us directions, some specific directions. One was to maximize the green fees and cart fees and the revenue generated by the golf course, increase golf course utilization. It had been declining over a number of years, expand the merchandise offerings and sales, and improve the overall customer service in the operation. To take a step back, I mean, one of the things that DEERPATH has been experiencing has been a decade-long, if not longer, downturn in the golf business. For those of you who aren't familiar, over the last 10 years, there are probably 11% less golfers than there were in 2000, and it's especially exacerbated by the downturn in the economy. Same thing is happening in rounds. We went from a peak of 518 million rounds as an industry in 2000 down to 463 million just this last year. We operate in 27 states and about 100 golf courses around the country, and I'll say there's not a market, Lake Forest isn't unique or the North Shore isn't unique, there's not a market in America that isn't under severe pressure from lack of golf rounds, and you see it both in the public sector as well as the private sector. Those of you who are members of private country clubs, you've seen the same thing happen there, reduced initiation fees, reduced dues, a real battle. So it's a struggle out there to attract rounds and to drive rounds, and it's just a context that everyone should have in mind as we look at golf courses and their performance. It's been made a little worse this year because the weather was very poor the first half of the year. So these are some statistics prepared by the National Golf Foundation. Nationwide rounds are down 8%, and revenue on a same-store basis is down over 5%. And in the Chicago area, there's been severe weather the first half of the year. Those of you remember in March, April, May, there was hardly any golf being played almost in the beginning of June, and rounds are down over 15%. So now that I've fully lowered expectations, I'll tell you, I am proud of our team out of DEERPATH, and working closely with the Golf Advisory Committee and the board have really worked hard to combat some of these really headwinds we see in the golf business. For this year, for the fiscal year for 2014, we're looking at a slight, so far, a 1% increase in revenue, as you saw, compared to an industry that's down about 5-6%. Merchandise sales are up about 11%, and we've seen rounds increase 3%, really in the face of real downward pressure on rounds. So I think that's really been, and Rick's going to come up in a moment and talk about a lot of the initiatives that drove this, but it's a lot of little things that have done it. And then this final slide I have, this compares the 3 golf seasons. Now I know Mary, I'm going to get in trouble with Mary for this slide because the city is on a fiscal year basis that runs May through April. It's really high in the golf business. We think, and especially in Chicago, we think of golf season. So it's much easier for us to compare all our initiatives. But these all match up to the numbers in the city budget. But these are the 3 years. 2011 was the year before we arrived, in 2012 and 13 are the 2 golf seasons. So far as I mentioned, from a golf season perspective, we're up about 6% in revenue over 2012, and we project to maintain that through the rest of the year at about 5% at year end. And if you look going all the way back to 2011, we've had about a 6% increase in revenues. And what we've been able to do, and that's really been driven, so the question obviously, well, how in the face of declining rounds in an industry and declining revenue have you been able to do it? What we've been able to do, a lot of the initiatives we put in place were targeted at driving daily fee rounds. So the daily fee rounds at DEERPATH actually from 2011 to 2012 are up almost 30%, from 10,000 daily fee rounds to 13,000. At the same time, and I know the board has had some concerns that the member rounds have been down and memberships have been down. And it really depends on what your goal is. Our mission was to try to get this to break even. So in that context, member rounds, while we love the members and we want a lot of members, members are your least profitable in a lot of sense in terms of a green fee per round. So the fact that the members are down a few, when we've been able to replace them, we've freed up some of the permanent tee time slots that used to be blocked out and driven those additional rounds that are green fee paying rounds is how we've been able to, drive the revenue in a context. And it's always a balance, and we really look for guidance from the city and in the advisory board to balance the members. It's the residents' course, it's the members' course, and we're not looking to overcrowd it. At the same time, what we're hearing from the city is we need to drive more revenue, we need to get this to break even. So that is kind of the snapshot on the industry and where we stand. And then I'll let Rick kind of walk through some of the key marketing initiatives that have gotten us there, and we're happy to answer any questions after that.
Thank you, Steve. So how did we get here? A couple things that just highlight to me right off the bat. If we're going backwards and we're looking at same store rounds, 15% down versus last year, and then going forward to how did we get to 3% rounds up? The term that we use quite a bit in the golf business is utilization. And in a golf sense, it really is what it means. How do we get the maximum utilization out of the golf course? There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many golfers you can put out on the golf course at a time. So some of the key initiatives that we put forth were we're going to try to rebrand the golf course. In the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of consistency in all of our marketing efforts, both direct mail, email, in-store signage, you might say, in the golf course. You've seen it around town. We've seen it at municipal services. The same color, the same feel. My Club is DEERPATH, if you're familiar with some of those. So we did rebrand it, included that on the website. really began to use the website as a tool, not only an information tool, but a booking tool. At year-to-date, currently, all of our tee times that are booked online, our website accounts for the largest portion of that. We also utilize some third-party vendors that you'll see down here in the new tee time distribution channels, Golf Now, GreatGreensFees.com, some of these other outlets. Well, they'll help us increase that utilization by promoting and selling our tee times for us. I want to reiterate again, it is important to note that our website is the biggest driver of tee times amongst all of those, because that really allows us much more control over that price. When I go to a third-party vendor like a Great Greens Fees or a Golf Now, it's setting a price and letting them sell it. I don't have the ability to move that. On our website, we can move it in an instant. If it starts filling up, if it's the BMW Championship and everybody feels like playing golf, all of a sudden you can start to get that price up and get it as close to the rack rate or the top rate as we can. So increasing that utilization is the key to bringing in more revenue. Increased customer communication. If you're a resident in the area and you're part of the park board email, the Parks Department email, you might even be part of the DEERPATH email. You've been seeing that more frequently. Try to touch base once a week in the golf season, once a month or so in the off season, really as not only a sales tool, but as an informational tool. We aerated greens Monday, and we announced that ahead of time, not only with the on-course signage at the facility, but through emails as well to the entire database, which we've been able to grow from, just over 1,000 to closer to 3,000 just in about 18 months. Enhanced member offerings and resident outreach, just trying to appreciate. I think Steve said it best. We love the members. We love the season pass holders. We want to appreciate and value them. But as that segment is shrinking, not only at DEERPATH, but in all daily fee and even private facilities, that base is shrinking. So our job is to then pick up the slack with daily fees. And a couple of the numbers that I'm going to throw out, we don't have on the slides for you, are utilization-based numbers. Last year on weekends, and we classify weekend as Saturday, Sunday, on weekends we utilized the golf course at a rate of about 46%. In theory, I think it will make sense to, if you think about it, you can't utilize a golf course at 100%. That means you're selling a 7 p.m. tee time and a 5:15 a.m. tee time that only school would play at. But we utilized it overall at about 46% last year. This year to date, through August, on weekends, 51.7. So that's a 12.4% increase in utilization. And if you also then take a step back and realize that our member base has shrunk, and therefore those member rounds are down, so you're increasing immediate revenue to the bottom line with bringing in that extra 12.4% of people. We were able to increase weekday utilization by 2%. So getting more people on the golf course, getting the golf course known through marketing initiatives really helped. I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me, never been here before, never heard of it, didn't know it was here. Really getting that name out there. We've had the CDJ out for events. We've had the IJG out for 6 events in the last 2 years. So just getting everybody more involved with knowing about our facility and that it's available for play. One of the things Steve also mentioned earlier was driving merchandise revenue sales. We've increased that 45% since the 2011 level. With a good fall finish, we could break the $100,000 in gross revenue barrier, which is up from 67 in 2011. So some significant impact on the merchandise size, and that's a profit driver as well. On strategic side, the golf shop renovation has yielded a nice increase, and you can see through those pictures there just the look and feel. Very dated on the left, very cluttered, much more welcoming and a better traffic flow, not only for folks coming in and just checking in to play golf, but a more inviting purchasing environment. The permanent tee time program, which is directly connected to the membership base. Historically, years ago, that filled up everything from the beginning of play on Saturday, Sunday through the lunch hour. Those are all times that are the golden nugget of the golf daily fee business. So as that base has shrunk of members, we've had to find a way to market that. And through advice of the Golf Advisory Committee, we took to the city last year and proposed that a couple of those times on Saturday and Sunday, the city would hold back from the permanent tee time program and resell those. And it was our task to manage those times, sell them for the most that we could. and then manage those players to make sure that they interacted well with our loyal customer base of regular members and permanent tee time holders. It's been just a smashing success, and I think that's a big reason that utilization number is up and the revenue is up. When you can sell the highest price times and you have more of those to sell, you're going to be more effective. If all I'm trying to sell is the 3 p.m. Saturday times, I can't generate nearly as much revenue as I can the 8 a.m. time. So that was of real strategic importance in increasing the revenue. The Golf Advisory Committee has been phenomenal to me personally, as well as to Kemper in general. We've worked with them very well on these programs and these ideas, vetted out all these ideas, and they've really brought a members and a residents perspective to us as we went through some of these changes. At the end of last season, Bluffington's contacted the city and let them know that this wasn't a profitable enough venture for them. They were going to not renew their contract. In somewhat short order, Kemper was able to work out an agreement with the city to pick it up and start managing the food and beverage, and we've seen some real increases in the last 60 days, both in customer experience and overall quality. So we're having some real positive feedback in the short term from the food and beverage. Mr. Williams is going to speak here shortly on the deep well project. We did a feasibility study for the city and lent some expertise from the Kemper staff to the city on proposal of having a deep well for DEERPATH irrigation use. We also established customer feedback using some proprietary technology Kemper has in a true service program to train our employees on acceptable customer service levels from our perspective. For just over a year now, we've been getting feedback on a weekly basis directly from players at DEERPATH, and that is invaluable for us to find out what everybody really is thinking, because not everybody will take the time to come to my office and let me know, and it's a great tool for us to measure that success and measure our improvement over the last 2 years. A couple of quick numbers on our marketing initiatives and what they've directly led to. This is just this season. This is calendar, my apologies, Mary, calendar
That's good. You guys are okay.
2013 calendar results. Through direct email and greatgreensfees.com, we've generated over 1,300 rounds and over $40,000 revenue just from that one campaign. Golf Now is over 1,000 rounds and $52,000 in revenue. And then our website has generated 2,400 rounds and $75,000 in revenue. Those are all tee times booked through various means that we didn't have access to in 2011 and before. So you total that all up, it's just short of 5,000 rounds and just short of $170,000 in revenue directly from these marketing efforts. So next year, briefly, 2014, what we're going to target and work with the advisory committee and the city on is really continuing to increase daily fee at those underutilized times, trying to find our proper value for the more valuable times, getting as close as we can to the top rates, and then really maximizing through multiple means how we generate more revenue in the underutilized times. Continue to work with the city on evaluating and enhancing the membership offerings. Just a few years ago, they introduced the Limited Plus program, kind of a 20-round punch card. Items like that has proven really successful. Continue to generate ideas like that so we can offer memberships that the residents will want to purchase. Improve the food and beverage offering and service, improve the customer service in general. It's an ongoing program with current employees as well as future employees, bringing them up to speed on our world-class service program. Assist in the growth of the junior golf and the DEERPATH Golf Academy. I know you've seen the numbers for the instruction on a monthly basis and a quarterly basis. It's just a fantastic program that is growing by leaps and bounds. It's, we're stretching the ability of the golf course to handle this size of a program, and we're thrilled with it. And we're going to continue to work with the city on how we can continue to bring in more junior golfers, particularly the local residents, and grow them up in the game of golf at DEERPATH. We're going to build on our experience we did this year of family golf. Sunday afternoons, we targeted a family golf program. Families of up to 5 can come out and pay a flat fee and play DEERPATH from some family tees we installed, much shorter tees, beginner golfers. Dad and son and daughter play from the short tees together to really have a family bonding time over golf. We had several hundred rounds played in the family golf program. We're going to continue to offer family-oriented packages to try to drive that particular portion. And then we're going to continue to develop small group business within the local community. That's kind of our bread and butter for external events, if you will. The Rotary, of which Mr. Newman's a part of, is going to be out Thursday, 24 players, plus a little lunch. That's kind of our niche in the marketplace outside of the daily fee. When you're talking about event programming, it's 20 to 40 people. It fits the size of the facility and it fits the capability of the facility. That's really going to be a nice target for us to continue to expand on in 2014 as well. We certainly look forward to having you out at the golf course. We had some conversations about learning to play golf with some of the folks here in the audience, so hopefully we can have you all out, come out and enjoy DEERPATH. I know that both Steve and I are available, as is Mike, if we have any particular questions pertaining to DEERPATH.
Anyone have any questions?
Well, you talked about, you know, some of the things you want to do for next year to continue the momentum, the positive momentum, but you're obviously pushing, you know, against a trend that doesn't really show signs of subsiding on the negative side. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, strategically, I don't know that I'm thinking strategically, but I'm wondering, are you guys thinking strategically about what we might do, given that we, you know, have this wonderful asset, which we're not going to let go of as a community, and frankly, we need to win, you know, more rounds than other courses around us in order to keep it healthy and keep the city behind it. What could we do strategically? What investment, you know, might we consider, should we consider from your perspective to win?
It is significantly competitive, not just in the daily fee business, but we're in a very highly private country club community. So we do have some fight there with folks who maybe are on the borderline of joining a private community or not. Strategically, the discussions we'll have with the advisory committee and with the city of Lake Forest are, you know, where do we want to put our focus? We've tried to grow the daily fee business as the membership business has sank. That's continuing to be a focus. How can we move forward there? Jeff and I are in discussions on capital assets. What can we use capital-wise to possibly improve it? Maybe Steve can speak a little more to that.
If I could just add, I mean, one of the things we've seen in other communities, one of the benefits you'll have, it's not going to be a popular answer, but continue to invest in your asset. All of these golf courses are struggling, whether they're privately owned, municipally owned. What they do is they fall in this cycle of not reinvesting in the asset, and the conditions decline, and you get in what we call the death spiral, because then your lower green fees, you get less play. So, you know, not to you teed it up for the well discussion later, you know, investing in a long-term asset like a well, so you have control of your water source. So in a drought year like last year, when, you know, the time we need water most is when the time the city doesn't have water and turns us off. And that, you know, that did a lot of damage to us last year in driving play, to the golf course as well as to the reputation. So it's frankly reinvesting in things like irrigation and well and bunkers, and, you know, maintaining, because others will fall off, you know, other golf courses won't be able to reinvest. So I think, you know, if you've got a long-term vision and, you know, maybe are, I hate to say it, worried less about making that last dollar today, but always looking 5, 10, 20 years down the road, I think that's strategically, you're going to come out 5 years from now and others will have fallen away. Because you're 100% right, we have to win and, you know, get a greater share of a stagnant or shrinking pie of golfers.
Well, to follow up on that, so other than the well, I mean, there's no other sort of improvements that you're seeing that should be made or could be made that would distinguish us?
Yeah, I think the well is one. I think the other opportunity we have, if we could find the right place to do it, would be some kind of tent or pavilion to allow us to do more outings. I mean, right now, you know, we've tried to bring outings there, and it's very difficult to do it. You know, Lake Bluff has a little bit of a niche in that they have that permanent tent, they have the space. Yeah. You know, if we could look at from a long term, how do we realign some of the space out there? We're tight, we're landlocked, but how could you find space for a tent structure like that, because outings would be, you know, a big benefit in a lot of the soft weekday times. So that would be another idea, but those kind of really are the two.
Okay.
And continue to, you know, improve the service, and, you know, and eventually you have to look at, eventually there's only gonna be, let's say, there's so much you can do in revenue, and you have to look at kind of the whole operation, and can the whole operation be run as efficiently as possible within itself, and, you know, that would be, kind of be the next place to look.
Steve, could I add to, also we're going to, and I think the park board, we talked about at the committee of the whole meeting, we touched upon it, is that with the Route 41 underpass and the detention project that's coming forward, I mean, that's gonna give us an exciting opportunity to possibly redesign a couple holes out there, you know, put some spark and interest into, you know, the golf course, and maybe draw new golfers that wanna come and, you know, challenge themselves on some new aspects that is different at DEERPATH. So I think that's something that we're excited about as well, and,
Good
you
point.
know, so. Can I ask too, can you guys go back to your first picture of your slide? They didn't mention this, but I wanted to share with you that Kemper has so many wonderful connections, and we forget sometimes just the small things that they assist us with, but they helped us locate a photographer that came out this summer and took new pictures of DEERPATH Golf Course from all different angles, and, you know, this was one of the shots that the professional photographer did take on behalf of DEERPATH. And now we have a whole, you know, variety of photos, new photos to use to help to market the course. And quite honestly, you know, there are beautiful, you know, places and aspects about our course that we don't probably promote to get to bring golfers out. And then the photographer will be coming back and doing fall shots for us, so we'll continue to, you know, build our inventory of that kind of marketing. So I just wanted to mention that because, again, it's a resource that they had. Obviously, there's lots of photographers, but this gentleman photographs golf courses all over for Kemper, and really knew how to capture the essence of our course. So I just thought I'd mention that also with you guys, so.
I just have a couple quick follow-up questions. One was that you indicated that you're doing sort of a more of a survey type customer surveys, and I guess my question is, what have you learned from that surprises you in terms of things that are going right and things that are going wrong?
I would think the first thing that comes to mind is how quickly the reaction comes in when there is, say, a conditions issue. Say there's an issue with a specific bunker or a specific green. You'll find out immediately if you haven't heard back already. That was one of the surprising things. We've always known it's a well-conditioned golf course, but there have been some suggestions that have come back on the golf course maintenance side that we've taken to the committee and to the city. So that was not surprising, but it was certainly not anything that we expected. And then on the good side, just the positive feedback we've gotten on our employees, reiterating that and being able to actually take it back to them and say, hey, here was a kudos for you directly by name. Somebody came and mentioned your name about how great a job you did.
And the other thing, at Committee of the Whole, I think there was several members who, the one document we haven't seen here is sort of where we were projecting the golf course to be in 2013. And although you're showing that, you know, there's revenue that is up, it's not nearly as far up as the projections were. And I think that was really the source for the question and the concern. And, you know, to put it bluntly, were our expectations unreasonable based on what, the weather, the economy, a combination of them, or?
The question, let me make sure I understand the question, Dave. It's on the budget aspect of where we're at compared to the fiscal budget. Is that where the question arose from?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and the reporting that we've been sending back fiscally is based on budgets that were just divvied up monthly over the very recent past history. And as you know, just from this year, as we just talked about earlier, March and April and part of May was pretty much a wash, whereas last year, March, April, and May were absolute gangbusters. So when you're only using a short-term history, it's very hard to divide it up. We just received the August financials today, and an encouraging note is looking at both revenue and expenses, even including the two capital items we've had this year, one in maintenance and one in the clubhouse. There's over $220,000 in profit on the bottom line now, which of course we'll a little bit get into through the cold season. But I think fiscally we're off to an excellent start.
But I think, the committee was 100% right to be alarmed by the budgets. I mean, one of the things, when I mentioned why it's a split thing, it's, we don't really control the budget. We only have a small piece of the operation. So, you know, we fell down on not being strong enough in giving you a budget in our format and let the city deal with it, you know, how they want to put it in theirs. We kind of did the reverse and tried to feed in. So, I mean, that's really on us. So, you know, you're right to be alarmed. The fact of the matter is, you know, being flat to up in this environment after a great weather year in the golf season 2012 would have been a great result and should have been what the budget was. So, you know, going forward, we have to do a better job of delivering to the committee, to the advisory committee. These are our expectations, and then the city in its budget process can do whatever it wants with our, you know, reasonable expectations. So it's kind of a disconnect with us running part of the operation and other pieces of the operation being run elsewhere, so.
I think I would like to add to that, just I think the other aspect is it's only been 2 years of trying to gain traction and to predict with Kemper's assistance and with our changes out there, and that has been an unknown, I think, for us to what can we get out of the Golf Now online versus, you know, what we thought we could get. So we are still, I think, very much learning in some ways to how our partnership works with Kemper and really what our course is capable of, because really until before Kemper, we didn't have these tools at our fingertips. We didn't have any online, you know, registration. We couldn't mine our member database and understand the utilization rate. So though our course was always a successful course and I always felt that we always had a good product, we didn't necessarily manage our product maybe as good as we could. And so that I think is we've gotten traction and we've moved in the right direction, but there's still more work, you know, that can be done. So
yeah, I have a couple questions. First one's a comment. You know, looking at what you were tasked to do, and the numbers show that you guys done I think, a phenomenal job. And if you've been out to the course prior to now, clubhouse and all that, it's a night and day difference. So hats off to you guys for accomplishing, I think, what was tasked to do. The other thing I like is on a communications standpoint, the surveys I think are phenomenal. I mean, I think you get, like you said, Rick, you get that feedback. If there's condition issues, those are coming back right away, but you ask overall how you guys are doing. I think that's a good measuring stick. What I'm kind of curious at is if you've done surveys to the members, players, even I guess the mid-am that was just out there doing, I call it a tee to green survey about condition, because the product's no good if the product's not good. It's, you know, no one's going to come out there. So I'm curious if that is something you guys are looking at doing and getting a better feel, because I know you focus on what your tasks are in the survey,
Right.
but there's not a survey out there to the people playing the course to see, as I call it, the tee to green
And
condition.
that may be the perfect opportunity, as Mary mentioned earlier, you know, if we go through this redesign or this small reconstruction as part of the highway underpass program, surveying all the regular players and specifically surveying the membership players who play most frequently, what their opinion is of specific things. We can certainly put together ideas of what kind of questions we'd like answered with the city and the advisory committee and come up with something focusing on, since that is directly towards, let's work on these 2 holes or 3 holes of the golf course. What would we like to see? And then you can also, you know, expand that into what kind of conditions are our concerns and what kind of conditions can we improve.
And I would be even more like to see that, even that mid-am that was just out there, those are golfers that don't come out there, and they're, you know, low handicap golfers, and I'd be curious to see how they felt.
That would be something
course
I could
was
certainly
and-
contact the CDGA and see if they would allow us contact with that, since they have that database, that's their player group. I have all their names and clubs, but they don't provide the contact information to me, but they could theoretically get in touch with them and ask them to participate in a voluntary survey.
Yeah, I guess more, again, of a statement. I just want to thank Steve and the rest of the Kemper team. I think what we've gotten accomplished in the last year and a half, and I know this isn't a big moneymaker for Kemper, but I mean, just the dedication to improving the asset is, I think, as Stu said, it's well noticed out there. And having sat on the board of another golf asset here in town. I mean, nobody gets into golf because it's a good deal. And so I think, you know, when you look at the rounds and what we've done and knowing that we've sort of hamstrung Kemper to manage the top half and not be involved necessarily all the way to the bottom line, job well done. And I would just encourage you guys to be, you know, work with us even more in terms of how do we manage the P&L to the bottom line. So if there's areas where we can be better on managing, operating the golf course, I think that's where you can take us to the next level. I don't see us bringing in Tom Fazio to redo our course anytime soon, but I think to your point, Steve, and that's where we've got to look long-term as to how do we make our asset more unique to the rest of the offerings. So thanks a lot, guys.
Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Appreciate you taking the time to come out here tonight. Agenda item 4C, relatedly, is the Kemper Agreement for the 2014.
Oh,
Yeah. At this time, I'd like to invite Gary Chan, Chair of the Golf Advisory, and Tim Newman to come up and say a few words.
Excellent.
Thank you for an opportunity. Tim, Gary, I'm the chair of the Golf Advisory Committee. Thank you for an opportunity. I just want to kind of give you a summary viewpoint from the Golf Advisory Committee. Some of it is going to be, you know, redundant with what Kemper had conveyed to you, but I think it's important that you hear from us directly. First, regarding operational and financial performance, we believe the City of Lake Forest, along with Kemper, have done a very good job in managing the course, improving financial performance, and delivering an enjoyable golfing experience to its customers. Kemper has bought state-of-the-art sales and marketing capabilities, which have significantly increased golf course utilization percent. Rick didn't mention it, but the whole dynamic pricing mechanism that we've put in place has been a major factor in increasing revenue. Expenses continue to be managed efficiently. The DEERPATH Golf Academy and youth camp programs have been a big win. It's just fabulous seeing the young folks out there and the participation that we have in the pipeline that we're building. Earlier issues with food and beverage have been addressed, and Kemper has mentioned it. They're focused on further improvement. And as mentioned, when compared to the overall golf industry trend, clearly DEERPATH has significantly outperformed the industry. Opportunities, however, do remain to further increase utilization and revenue through superior sales, marketing, programs, and pricing management. So that's our summary viewpoint on operational financial performance. In terms of, instead of us coming up here a few times, I want to kind of mention our recommendations. We do support the recommendation to extend the contract with Kemper under the same scope of services as provided currently. And I underline that because, you know, we, as an advisory committee, we hear from the folks in the community. We think we've made a great deal of progress. There's been a great deal of change, permanent tee times, you know, more, quote, outsiders coming in. We need to balance retaining the membership. We can't just immediately say, okay, you know, we want to increase daily fee usage, but at the same time, we need to be mindful that we have a core membership that we need to retain and to attract that group. And we need to manage through this change process at a one step at a time basis. So we also, that's point number one, we do support the recommendation to implement a deep well. This is important to ensure that DEERPATH has the infrastructure to provide adequate course maintenance over the long term. You know, DEERPATH is currently disadvantaged versus other golf courses in this area in this regard. And we do support the recommendation on fees for 2014 that will be presented later. The last point we want to make is, and this has been brought up in, just earlier, longer term considerations. While we are satisfied with our progress and success to date, and more improvement will be achieved, we all must recognize that the longer term trends in the golf industry are in decline, at least for the foreseeable future. in terms of rounds play until the pipeline of younger players fills that gap, and that's not going to happen right now for the foreseeable future. While in earlier years going back, DEERPATH was able to sustain itself financially from a break-even standpoint, in fact, slightly positive, we believe this is not a realistic expectation for the foreseeable future. We do not expect DEERPATH to be a significant financial drain on the city. However, the city will need to realign budget expectations to recognize these long-term trends. We all want to aggressively plan to achieve reasonably aggressive goals. What we cannot do is plan goals that are not realistic and then disappoint and fail. That is the point. So in the end, DEERPATH is an invaluable asset to the community, providing a highly enjoyable experience to many of its residents of all ages. Tim, was a point?
To Commissioner Hill's point, I think we have to win this battle, and this is going to be a survival of the fittest versus the courses around us. We believe Lake Bluff is somewhat at risk. We believe one of the two courses in Highland Park could potentially close. We need to capture any of those fallout golfers that come out of that. And to Commissioner Walker's point, we can't risk conditions being such to turn golfers away. We absolutely need this well. And we need it now, this year. And I know you don't have the capacity to pass that, but we would strongly recommend that your recommendation up to City Council be in favor of a well as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone have
If
any
you
questions?
have any questions or comments to us?
I mean, I would certainly thank you for your service and for, sort of being the eyes on the ground that can best advise us on some of these issues, so thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Moving on, Jeff, you're up.
Okay. Excuse me, the next item, or the item up now, is the Kemper Agreement. Through the presentations from Rick and Steve, as well as the endorsement from the Golf Advisory, we are recommending that we continue the agreement as it currently stands for Kemper. That would be for the 2014 season, so that would end on April 31st of 2015. So we are recommending that we continue the contract as is. So any questions?
Any questions, any discussion from any of the board members?
Just to clarify, this will go through 2015 or 2014?
It will go to the end of April, because we're on a fiscal year, so it will be through April 30th, 2015. So we'll start that, so they'll be, they'll be the 2014 golf season, so that would be, in the calendar year, but because of our fiscal year, it will end on April 31st, 2015.
Just to clarify, that actually is the date is really through the 2014 golf season. During the winter of 15, we would need to make a decision about that, the 15 golf season. So if we were not to be continuing with Kemper, we would know that before we would start the 15 golf season.
Yeah,
and
because
make-
there's an awful
put
lot
a
of,
contract in place. So just to clarify that for Jeff. But yeah, so that's why we always try to do the agreement approvals in the fall. So if we feel that we're moving in a different direction, we have the window to begin to look at what we do want to do next and put in place either, a search or continue to modify our agreements if we need to, with hopes that if we had a new vendor or change in direction, we would know by the first of the year to get that company the time to get ramped up to be able to assist us, or to go back to city operations should we decide to go back to city operations.
so that's helpful to me. So just so that I can repeat it back, we will have status quo through next golf season. And in summer/fall next year, we're going to revisit whether we lean in more with Kemper, keep it the same with Kemper, or back away from Kemper.
Correct. That would be correct.
And to be clear, we had a 2-year agreement, and we have a 1-year option to extend it for another year under the
It was,
existing agreement.
it was a 3-year contract, and we would just say, we would need to tell them before a certain date if we were gonna continue with the following year.
So is this year 4 we're talking about then?
No, this is year 3.
3, okay.
Yeah.
But we can we could terminate at any point in time during the term of the 3-year contract?
Right.
Okay. So really, this is simply to not exercise our right to terminate the agreement in year 3?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Hearing no other questions or discussion, I guess I would accept a motion to.
I'll so move that we continue with the existing Kemper contract through April of 2015.
I would move an emphatic second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Passes recommendation unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite Mike Williams up here to discuss the deep well research report.
So I'm sorry, is this the deep well discussion, or is this the proposed 15 golf fees we're covering now?
This is, we probably skip, so if we could just do the deep well at this time.
That's fine.
And then come back to,
Well, good evening. I believe you've all, by this point, seen the aforementioned deep well research report that was compiled. We were asked by the city to provide a recommendation and provide some independent research on a deep well at DEERPATH. The city has done a large amount of research in prior years regarding doing a well, and so we addressed that research as well as provided our own insights and experience into a deep well project. So I just want to give you kind of a 30,000-foot view of that report. It was a 30-page report. So I'll give you kind of I just want to give you a summary of that report that was compiled by Dan Cunningham, our Vice President of Development and Construction. First off, from a water usage standpoint, to give you a little bit of history, on average, the golf course uses 13 million gallons of water a year, and that again, and the average cost for that has been approximately $60,000 a year. Now, that 10-year average rate is per 1,000 gallons is $4.60. Now, the current rate is at $4.99 per 1,000 gallons. So that rate has continued to increase, and in 10 years, if we just use a 3% escalator, we'll be looking at basically $6.50 per 1,000 gallons. So we'll continue to see a rise in those costs. From a larger picture, water usage for the city, the golf course uses, even though we are really one of the largest customers in town, we only use 1% of the total usage in the city. So while we might be a big customer going away, it's really just a very small fish in the sea, I guess. And our peak usage tends to mirror the peak usage in the city as well. The cost for a deep well, depending on how it's engineered, will run between $950,000 and $1.2 million, depending on some variables in the engineering and as well as what other amenities are done. We've looked at doing a bathroom complex along with the well project. We also looked at surrounding facilities in the area, and typically they're running 1,300 feet deep with a 300 per gallon minute on average capacity. Really the big thing, and we saw it again this year, as we did last year, it gives the golf course the ability during droughts, during summer restrictions, this year there was an algae bloom, to continue to utilize water during periods of stress for the rest of the area. A good analogy would be to have a beautiful building with a great sprinkler system, but the only time you can't use the sprinkler system is when it's on fire. And that's kind of where we've been put a couple of times. We certainly believe that from an engineering perspective that this is very feasible, and it's financially viable. If we owned it, we would certainly be doing this. payback using conventional bond financing, it would pay itself off in 20 years. But in discussions with the city's finance director and the debt ceiling, capital availability, we'd actually see closer to a 12 to 15-year return on that investment. So in summary, we certainly, Kemper Sports certainly recommends pursuing this project. Are there any questions that I can?
So just so I'm clear, the, where we propose to do it is on the far northwest corner, is that right, out by the?
Yes, that's correct.
And in terms of the, sort of the topography and what we've done, we think that's the best place for it, or is that just the best spot for the available real estate?
One of the factors is the current irrigation system. And so when upgrades were done on that system, it was done, the way the piping and everything was set, it was established so that would be the prime location for it. So to move it to a different location would involve some going back and revising the current irrigation system.
Got it.
David, just to add to that too, we also have our utilities are immediately present up there, so we don't have to do a significant investment capital-wise to relocate utilities that we would need for the pumps and that kind of thing too. So there's a lot of win-wins from that location.
I'm looking at the report here, and it says the projected total for this well is about 1.16 million.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says that there's opportunities to complete the project at less costs. Could you maybe touch on what some of those are?
Sure. Let me flip to the page that has kind of a side-by-side. There's some of the opportunities come to building materials. So, for example, I know that there are some standards already existing at some of the other park facilities in terms of roof style and building style. If we didn't adhere to some of those styles, there'd be opportunities for some cost savings. And I want to say the other.
It's the size of the pump.
Yeah.
That value engineering, is that what you're talking
well,
about?
Well, yeah,
The
original the volume that was originally contemplated, we believe we don't need to use the same size, generate the same gallon per minute. Again, exploring what other facilities in there, where other facilities are at too, and other facilities in our portfolio that we have looked at similar projects at.
And just to clarify for the park board tonight, is we're not seeking any action as far as any financing aspects or, you know, even the committing to a design detail so much as just do you see the benefits of why the golf could benefit from a deep well, that the proposal that's in front of you and the research that's been done seems to support this is a possible project for us to continue to research. And what would happen next is we would need to, you know, really go into some design specifications and get some more concrete numbers for the particular project. And finance would work on the various funding scenarios, because there's different scenarios that we could look at. As you mentioned, whether or not we have some existing debt that will come off the books, which will allow us to look at a pay down option, but there might be other scenarios that City Council will want to consider looking at the overall projects for the whole city. And then we want to tie this into a little bit into, you know, really making sure that this decision and the timing of it works well to get us other benefits, not just for the DEERPATH Golf Course, but really helping the whole community out with when we get challenged with our water needs during these summer months and stuff, and being able to deliver to the whole community and making sure we understand what that benefit might be, so that, you know, that can be taken into context as a benefit, you know, not just for DEERPATH Golf Course. So there's still a little bit of work to happen with that. It's anticipated that we'd like, if Park Board approves and supports the concept of the deep well, that we would continue this conversation at the end of September with city council so that we could continue to refine this project with the hopes that either it could be a project for this winter, or if not, we would certainly have most of the legwork in place so that we could hit the ground, further down the road. But our goal would be to see if we can move this forward and get an answer for the community this winter, so.
Mary, without digressing the discussion, I mean, has Mike Thomas and his group looked at if you put $1 million into our existing pumping station, the ability to deliver the water to the golf course, would that be available versus digging the own well?
From that, I'm assuming you mean like a direct bore from the
Yeah, I mean,
plant?
take
They've
the
just
$1
done
million
some
and
back
put
of
it
the
into-
envelope kind of work, look at that. Obviously, we would still have to work within our existing allocation of total water for the community, so it would be just a financial, the question was whether the financials would make sense. Obviously, you have infrastructure changes all the way across town to get to our course. They could come down Laurel, that was kind of what's been brainstormed a little bit. But we haven't really put a ton of time into that option, just because we felt that for the similar dollars, you could do it right on the course versus impacts across the whole community. But that
Thanks.
was,
Yep.
yeah, that was a thought.
Is there a negative, I'm just thinking about the total impact on the community. Is there a possibility that Lake Forest residents would have to pay more for their water because there's no revenue coming from the golf course buying water?
As we mentioned, we are a very small part of it, at 1% of the total, revenue use, or the usage for the water fund. So I can't answer that. That's one of the questions that Michael Thomas's team is looking at to make sure of that, but we don't anticipate that. But I don't have a definitive tonight.
Yeah, I had forgotten it was that small. It seems like it'd be hard to believe that credibly could drive prices up. So we're just looking at benefits, particularly during those really, really hot times. I also understand.
I would say the other thing with that is if we aren't using that water, we know we have customers who need that water. So it would be swapped out with other customers that would use our capacity. So they're really, that potential for loss
Right, so
is
when
pretty
we talk
small.
about 1%, that's an equalized 1% over 12 months, but during the summer months, and particularly during really hot times, perhaps the golf course usage is much higher than 1%. Is that fair to assume?
I don't know that to say.
Point.
But the conversations we've had with them is that at those peak times, we also have customers that would utilize it if it was available, so that we don't stress our system so much.
Which is the help you were referring to earlier.
Right.
I just have one comment, which is, we're trying to figure out ways to make, this is a tremendous asset. I think we all believe that I certainly believe that the DEERPATH Golf Course is a tremendous asset to the community. And I think anything we can do, we ought to really strongly consider anything we can do from an investment standpoint to put it on more solid financial footing in the future. And so to the extent that this is a payback, when we take into account all costs, that it's a reasonable payback, I would be solidly in favor of it.
What would be is there any sort of state process that we'd have to go through to get approval to dig a deep well? And relatedly, out west, it's always a big issue. If we were doing this out in the western part of the county, we'd have this place full of people who would be saying, you're going to be depleting our aquifer.
Part of the process that we went through was working with the county already to make sure that this was feasible from a permitting standpoint. Having access to the aquifer is, you don't want everybody down the street to start digging their own wells now and tying in, and that was certainly a consideration. So that conversation has already been had, and there were no issues there.
And the reaction is that it's not going to have any impact on the deep aquifers
Correct.
in this area?
Correct.
Okay. And who's made that analysis and done that determination?
Our Vice President of Development Construction had that conversation with the county.
Okay.
I do want to mention that the well is in a floodplain, so that is something we're checking at this point in time to make sure we find out whether or not this is an issue that we would need to verify from a permitting perspective as well, or whether or not we would be okay under the fact that we had already been through this process and identified a potential well there when we stubbed the current irrigation system in. But that is something that, again, Public Works is verifying for us right now, so.
Mary, you just answered one of my questions regarding floodplain. What about wetlands issues, or, as you mentioned before, some of the potential infrastructure changes with Route 41, as well as the hospital, and the potential for reconfiguring a couple of those holes along the western side? Will this, if this wall goes in within the next year or so, will that be affected at all by some of these other changes, or wetlands?
I don't know if Kemper wants to answer that. You want me to answer that? I mean, from the hospital perspective, the Kemper wouldn't have that answer. We don't, this isn't in any way, we think, impactful or changing what is intended for the hospital. They're completely separate, situations. I don't know if am I answering the question for the hospital correctly?
Yeah, well, my concern was if that is an extended change to some of the infrastructure as well, will this continue to impact that? Will it have any damaging effects on water usage, or pressure, or simply just feasibility of getting to or from it if necessary?
I can't speak to the hospital advisory committee's work, but other than to say that I know that the water aspect of it has been very much a part of what's been looked at from their needs on impacts to city services and their water, and what that would do to the overall city. So that I don't think would be a challenge for us on our side of the course. It won't change our ability to get water, won't change our drainage across our property. All of that was addressed as part of the hospital's master plan. From the Route 41 underpass, we did look at that as maybe the well could be located there instead and be tied in somehow with those ponds. The challenge that we do have is our irrigation system is designed to move the water from the north end of the property, and all the flow that we did in 2005 across to the north branch is all designed to work in the kind of the setup that we have now. So if we move it to the very south end of the property, even though we're building a pond there, we would have to retrofit in many ways our current irrigation system and potentially impact that design that was put in place for the benefit of our wetlands and things. So that was another reason to stay on the north end seemed to make the most sense. And I think Kemper did look at that as well, so.
Yeah, we did examine that, and any reconstruction that's done on the north end, or on that southwest, and to having the deep well in place will eliminate any concern that might come up as we go through any type of growing process with new construction there. It will always have ample access to water.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess internally within the board, my question would be how we're going to word this motion. It's a little unusual, I would say. So if it's as simple as that we recommend that the city give further consideration to adding a deep well to the DEERPATH golf course, I think that's clear, and I understand it. To the extent it's something more than that or different than that,
That's perfect.
that's where I'm a little fuzzy. So with that as a preface, I don't know if anyone has a motion that they would make.
It's a quiet group. I would move that we encourage the city to quickly and deliberately evaluate all of the pros and cons relative to a deep water well. I'd like to see, well, that's my motion.
Do you want to clarify your language further
I
consideration?
can't read that.
Okay.
So I move that staff give further consideration to adding a deep well at DEERPATH Golf Course expeditiously.
We recommend that the city council direct staff to give further consideration to a deep well at the DEERPATH Golf Course expeditiously. How's that?
I think that's spoken like a true lawyer.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The recommendation is unanimous. Thank you very much for your time. Jeff? Fees.
Fees, yes. Well, every year, we develop a fee proposal for the golf course that will assist us in developing the budget. Rick and I have had numerous conversations about what we wanted to present to the park board and eventually to city council. So part of that discussion incorporates a competitive analysis of other golf courses in the area, with us looking closely at Lake Bluff, because that is who we feel is our direct competition. And if you look at the supporting materials, we are in that top tier of fees across the board when it comes to daily fees, cart fees, locker, range, and seasonal fees. So because of that, what we are suggesting, and another part of this is we heard very clearly from the golf advisory last year that we needed to provide some value to the membership. And we are suggesting for this year is increasing resident membership fees 3% only after February 15, 2014. Just to give a little background, last year, or just this past spring, anybody that purchased a membership fee prior to February 15th, 2013 did not see an increase on their seasonal membership. We felt that based on the previous year's increases, we got a little too high in the percentages wise, so they thought, let's add that value back to our members and say no increase if they purchase before February 15, 2013. So we're going to continue that process. So after that, it went up 3%. So if you purchase your membership before February 15th, 2014, you will only see a 3% increase on your membership. We also want to offer an incentive, which is a 25% discount on any purchase, any size purchase out of the golf shop. We had quite a few people take an off, we had a lot of members take us on so we saw some great sales through that. We are suggesting no change to non-resident rates. The golf advisory feels that, and rightfully so, that we're a little out of skew with the pricing differential between the resident and non-resident, so they want to freeze that. Now, just to be very clear here, non-resident rate went up after February 15th, 3%. So if they purchase before February 15th, they won't see an increase because that had already gone up. However, if they purchased before February 15th, 2013, when they saw no increase, it went up 3%. So they'll see a 3% if they purchase before February 15th, 2014. Even more importantly is if they purchase before that time this spring but missed the deadline, they're going to see a 6% increase. So they have a little bit more incentive to get in their membership this year than in previous years. We are not suggesting any changes to the daily or cart fees with the dynamic pricing that we're doing. We're getting a better return on our daily fees and cart fees. No change to range fees. The permanent tee time fee and the policy will remain the same this year. No changes to the policy. We were taking baby steps with this one. We feel that it was a great change last year. We saw a positive response from permanent tee time members in adhering to the cancellation policy. We did not have to issue any warnings to anyone, so we were suggesting keeping it no changes to that. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
We had considerable discussion last year about the cancellation policy, and can you just refresh my recollection as to where we ended up on that?
Right. Prior to last year, it was just cancel as you wanted to. So we put in some guidelines as for members to follow. So if you had a Saturday tea time, we requested that you would let us know noon on Wednesday, Thursday for Sunday, so that we would have an opportunity to sell back those times. Or if we got it, give us an opportunity to sell them. And we also held back 1 hour, one tea time every hour during permanent tea time to sell on the open market.
But the failure to do so resulted in a consequence, but only after like 6 or there was a threshold number.
Rick, was it 4 points?
It was a specific number of points.
You're right.
For each time, correct.
But
so
there was.
It would account for missing 6 full tea times over the course of the 26-week season.
Right.
And that didn't happen to any of the members.
That is correct.
But, and we were getting the effect we wanted, which was people were notifying us in time for us to sell
That's
those tea
correct.
times.
Yes,
And so the recommendation is no change to that.
exactly.
Any questions?
So I would just ask the board to approve the fees as presented and to direct staff to present to City Council that recommendation.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The recommendation is unanimous.
I would just make a comment that I was at the Golf Advisory Committee meeting, and a tremendous amount of work went into that recommendation. A lot of conversation, a lot of smart people thought about it, and so it looks like it's perfunctory tonight, but I want to just go on record as saying that I know a lot of work went into that.
Thank you, Steve.
Lakefront permit fees. This again, we presenting these fees in order to allow staff to prepare the lakefront budgets. The recommendation of a slight increase will help offset increased utility supplies, personnel expenses. So we anticipate with these recommendations to see a $2,852 increase over the previous year. So what we are recommending are no changes to the nanny, senior caregiver, resident, guest, non-resident access fee, the non-resident daily ramp launch fee, especially the non-resident. We saw approximately 15 this year come through non-resident daily ramp launch. That's even with the restrictions that we put in place because of Highland Park and some other facilities along the North Shore to ensure that our residents were able to utilize it during that prime time, Saturday, Sunday times. We are proposing a 2.5% increase in all permit fees. We are in our third year, or the final year, to get our compound storage fees for seniors at a 25% discount. We are finally going to be able to get that at 25. So they'll see a larger increase. I believe it's a 12 and 13% increase. So rather than hit them with one 48 and 52% increase one year, we were requested to spread that over 3 years. So this is that final year. We are also requesting that when we talking about the non-resident daily ramp launch is to keep in those restrictions that we put in the springtime so that we protect those prime times for our residents. So we will sell the non-resident daily ramp launch Monday through Friday, no holidays, no Saturday and Sunday for the non-residents, just to make sure that we can keep that there. So we are also got to do some retitling of one of the fees that is on the finance department's recreational fee spreadsheet. It was retitled wrong, so we were going to title it correctly. It was a winter sailboat storage, which should be a year-round sailboat rack storage, and then do some price differentials in according to what we want to do. We want to change the price differential on our rack storage space. Right now, we're at about 75% capacity with our current racks, but we do have a potential to kind of expand that if we wanted to. Right now, we're anywhere from almost 400 to 600% difference between a resident and non-resident rate. So what we would like to do is have a resident rate, 25% discount for our seniors, and then for our non-residents that we think we might be able to attract is do a 3 times what a resident pays for their rack and the ramp launch. We chose 3% because some park districts around the area, they do a 1.5%. We just didn't think that was appropriate. 2, just because we have such a great facility, we feel that is a premium.
I mean 300%.
300%, yeah, 3 times the amount. Not only that, but they're getting access to the entire beachfront, lakefront. So it's not just the basin that they'll have access to. So that's why we feel that a 300% increase on a resident would be appropriate. So, and again, we anticipate a $2,800 increase in revenue with this differential, or with this recommendation. Are there any questions?
What will it cost to have a boat on the rack next year, based on your recommendation?
Seasonally or year-round?
Yeah, seasonal year-round.
Both.
On the rack, a seasonal watercraft rack for a resident would be $410. And again, one of the things that last year the board suggested was to kind of freeze the racks because they just felt that, again, the prices were a little bit skewed, and it gives us a potential to kind of sell those more. So for a resident, it would be $410. For a senior, it's $307. For a non-resident, it's $1,230. Year-round for a resident, $652, $489 for a senior, and $1,956 for a non-resident.
Just one other question, which is, have we compared those numbers to other communities? I assume we have.
We do. We do a competitive analysis of facilities along the North Shore. It's really difficult to compare our facility just because of the unique character of it. But we're still sort of in line with what others do, although we're on the high side. But because of the facility, I think that it deserves a premium.
I would entertain a motion to recommend approval of the fees as proposed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I guess the only comment I would make is I think our fees are quite a bit too high still. So my plan is to vote no. I'd like to revisit the fees, but if other people feel strongly that we should move forward, I would respect that. But because I don't consider this to be a huge issue, but I do think they're too high. I think we ought to figure out how to get more people using this incredible resource that we have down at the beach, and throwing a boat on a piece of on a wooden rack for a year uncovered shouldn't cost over $600 for a resident. That's just ridiculous to me.
So it's the resident fee or all the fees or?
I'm just speaking to that particular one, because I can't, that's a big, long page, and I don't have it memorized, but it just seems and I know, Jeff, you guys have a, a revenue target you're trying to hit. But I have I guess, a different goal in mind, and I certainly want us to hit our revenue targets. But that just seems too high to me.
Steve, just to clarify, would you be comfortable if we approved our launch fees and our other lakefront fees, but brought the rack fees back to you? Is that what you're asking?
I think that's a good mod. Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. Because the one I'm really specifically talking about is that wooden rack with all the, there's all sorts of, we have sailboards and sunfish and lasers and all that stuff, yeah.
And if it's only 75% occupied, what do we do to get that other 25% occupied? Bring more people down as opposed to raise the prices on everybody else. I guess that's the way I look
Well,
at
and
it.
I'm just not suggesting that we raise the prices, but I think they're way too high now, so.
Well, that's
Yeah.
Well, didn't we have the same discussion last year?
We
And I'm
did.
trying to-
We
And I'm
did.
trying to remember where we came back, because I thought we sent staff back with that same element,
We had,
Well,
and
yeah, we were asked to freeze it, and that's what we did. We froze all those fees, so, yeah. And then looking at the non-residents, that's why we chose to present a different pricing differential this year. So, yeah, we can certainly go back. I can talk to the sailing supervisor, the assistant, and come up with some different scenarios for the racks. What can we do, and just looking to see how we can lower them. How much more lower?
I mean, I want to say, on the positive note, the beach has never been a better place to be.
It's fantastic.
It's unbelievable. You guys are doing a wonderful job. The food service is fantastic. The facility just looks great. This particular issue, I don't want this to, cast a pall. I do think we're out of line on this particular one. So I move that we approve all of the fees with the exception of the rack, and that we revisit the rack,
Don't we have
maybe
to
next
vote
month.
on the first motion?
Well,
Can I
unless there's,
withdraw- can I
could be
withdraw my
withdrawn.
motion?
Sure. And the second's withdrawn as well.
What kind of feedback are you getting from the public on these fees? I mean, obviously, you must be getting some, if not any. I don't know.
Yeah, in talking with the sailing staff who oversees the racks, the basins, the non-residents are very surprised by what it would cost. Some residents have given, $600, kind of surprised that they just bought a $2,000, sea kayak, and now they've got to spend another $600 to keep it down at the beach. So it's a little bit of both,
I would like to see, take it back, though. I'd like to see more feedback from the actual users on costs.
Okay.
I mean, if people are complaining about it, yeah, then
Well, I'll give you perspective. I'm one user. I choose not to keep my boat here in the community I live in, and I keep it in Lake Bluff, and it's under a roof. It's in a wooden rack, just like we have here, and it's I think it's $250 a year, and that's a full year price. And I'm it just strikes me that we want to get people down to the beach. We want to get more people down there, and I think we're doing a lot of stuff to make that happen. But this is an area where, if people are keeping their boats down there, they're gonna just naturally migrate down more often. I think we'll sell more. We'll sell more food. We'll just utilize the beach even more than we are now.
Yeah, I think a consideration for the way that it was priced in the past was that we're kind of limited in the amount of parking that we have, and to make sure that we have that available for our residents is why they priced it that way, although I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate. So that's why it is sort of that way, but we can certainly, give some more thoughtful consideration of how we can reduce it.
And I mean, I will remind the board, we do have the comparison in the packet for you that showed the other communities. And it's a wide range. Evanston is as low as 260 for a resident, whereas Wilmette's 433, and so they're higher than us on racks. So, I mean, the rate seems to be, kind of evolving between 260 and as high as, 433. The non-resident rate, again, varies greatly from, $320, it looks like, up to us, which is, gets a little more expensive. So I just, we can certainly look at that, but it is one of those that's kind of hard to compare. But I agree with you. At the end of the day,
It's interesting that we don't have the closest community to us shown there, though.
you're
Lake
talking about Lake
Bluff.
Bluff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's not a city rate. That's all I can figure out.
Yeah, could be.
I guess I'd have two questions to Steve's point, which is, one, what's the time frame within which we would have to come back and get something to the city council? And two, what, other than sending staff back to look at some numbers, I mean, what's going to be our direction? Is the direction to try to figure out, is this capturing the actual costs? Because if it is, then I don't have any problem with it. But I'm a little hesitant to just say, well, take another look at it. I mean, I think we have to be a little more precise and say, in what respect? How do we come up with these numbers, and are these numbers not accurately reflecting the costs, or something to that effect? So I guess, Mary, you could answer the first question in terms of timing. When do we need to have this?
We can bring it back to you at your October 15th Committee of the Whole discussion, and we could identify it on the agenda as a potential action item, and that would still allow us to turn it in for finance for the October packet that goes out. They put all the fees in there so it can come to council in November. So we would be able to still do that at the October 15th Park Board meeting. So that's not a problem. The other,
What direction could we give you that would be helpful to you to
I mean, I think you have
reassess this?
Yeah, I think you have to recognize that the lakefront operations, the expenses down there, staff do multiple responsibilities. We can't carve out just, something simple that says this is the exact cost for racks, because, the beach staff that are down there support it, the sailing staff help do it. We did rebuild them all this past year. You might recall that was another directive from Park Board, was that they had, were showing deterioration, et cetera. So those were all rebuilt this year, and we kind of spruced it up. We had more signage about where to get help and how to, get assistance down there. And I think that did help. We saw more paddle boarding as an example, kick off this year. We'd love to see that continue to grow. So I think we did put some cost into that area this past year to enhance that for our residents and anybody who had a rack. I don't know that from an expense size we could carve out and say that this is what it costs us to provide the rack. So I do think we should look at what is more, a philosophy here. Do we want to be in the middle of the pack? Do we want to be the most costly, because we're one tier under that. But, what is the comfort zone for residents? It's not going to drive it's not a huge revenue item, as you can imagine, with the 75, but it is a revenue stream that is one of the few that we have for the beach, as you know. So we want to bring in some monies for all of our time, and it is a service. It's a valuable service, but there's a value to it that the residents should contribute for that access and that convenience, and that opportunity to be at our beach. So finding that right balance, I think, is where we could certainly talk and see what could be a revenue volume that we could feel comfortable reducing it down, that we wouldn't be getting this next year, but yet wouldn't take us down, so low that we don't contribute to the beach, I think, in a fair way for having that service down there. If that would be my recommendation or thought.
And I think it still has to be, Lake Bluff has to be considered in that,
Okay.
being
I didn't realize they
No,
have
kind of alarming to
a
hear
rack.
that
I didn't know they had a
residents are
rack.
going
Lake
to.
Bluff Yacht Club, so it's not city-run.
Okay,
They're given spaces, I
It's gotta be
understand,
under
by
the,
Lake
is
Bluff.
it under the Park District then,
No.
Steve, do you know? It's under
It's
the
a
yacht club.
Separate entity.
It's its own entity, yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize, I don't know that Jeff did.
Yeah,
either,
no,
but-
I had asked the sailing staff to find the numbers. So, you know, I didn't pay close enough attention to Wilmette, so, or excuse me, Lake Bluff.
I think, Lauren, you hit on something that I think we ought to ask you guys to consider, which is, how do we get full rack utilization? How do we get, you know, or if we shouldn't do that because somehow we don't have enough parking or something, then I would question why we built it in the first place. But it'd be nice to get that rack full, and then maybe even to consider, you know, whether we need more space. But so if we can, by my math, if we can, you know, fill the rack, we ought to be able to lower the price for everybody on the rack by some significant amount, right? Might think about it in those terms.
Okay.
Okay.
Any additional comments or thoughts?
Could you go back to that slide that showed how many non-resident permits were sold? I think it was 0 everywhere, right? That one.
Oh, yeah, right. Because if you look at the seasonal, non-resident, 0, year-round, 0. The seasonal, well, the only non-resident that we really have is, I think we have I'm sorry.
Yeah, the ramp launch.
Yeah, the seasonal no, we just saw 0. I thought we had 1 non-resident year-round in the compound.
One would wonder why we
But we
bother.
Pardon? Well, that's true, right. And that's why we suggested the differential,
Right.
so.
Do you think that having a differential as you've proposed will result in some non-residents bellying up and doing it, or do you think we'll still have zeros?
I think it makes it easier for us to sell it.
At least it's
but-
consistent
Yeah,
across the board.
but,
I think a separate question is how much do we want to encourage it anyway?
yeah, that's true. I mean, that is you know, I think
Obviously not
if
much
we
if we're
could,
gonna charge 3 times.
Well,
But also,
you know,
there's-
it does not, you know, a lot of, all these passes, you know, gives them an opportunity not only to come down and utilize the storage racks, but if they do get a parking pass, so if they want to just come down, park in the south lot, make their way to the beach, that is within that responsibility, or their ability to do that. So, you know, they do have greater access to the entire facility, not just the south end. So I think with that, being able to sell the whole thing, the entire facility, I think that the sailing staff would have a better chance of selling some non-residents.
I guess overall, I'm not troubled with not raising the current rack rates. I think we're talking about some number between $320 and $410, so we're not talking about a huge sum of money, but, you know, whatever the board's will is, we could send that issue back to staff to work on, or we could move forward on the original motion if you want to re-motion it up.
Defer whatever rate it takes you to get your boat done, or your watercraft in the rack.
I'm going to have to
Watercraft.
recuse myself of this vote.
And I'm one of the people who moved my sunfish off the rack because of the cost, you know.
I would like to make a motion that we approve most of what you're proposing, with the exception of the rack rate, and that you guys go back and come back to us in October, and we consider the October, that rack cost in October with the input that's been given tonight, which I think is probably sufficient for you guys to come back and make a recommendation that makes sense. Is that fair,
Yeah,
Mary?
I would just add on to that in the spirit of seeing how we could get the utilization up to 100%, so that it's that rate that we think could drive full occupancy, if that's possible.
Although there's certain benefits to having some availability for the next person who buys the boat to be able to get onto the rack, as opposed to having it a waiting list. But that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion as proposed? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's sufficient direction, Mary?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. We are on to,
Fitness center.
yes.
Yes. So,
Do this fast.
yeah, we are recommending increasing memberships by 2.5%, keeping the senior membership at a 25% discount. And this will, we'll see a positive revenue growth of about, where's my sheet? $15,566. We're not proposing any changes to the all access pass, but we do have some. The non-resident fees are a little bit different for our 3-month and 6-month to try to drive membership to that full year membership pass. So. Our recommendation is to increase all fees by 2.5%. Any questions?
Is that in line with what other clubs do?
Yeah, this does put us, we look at Lake Bluff, and this does put us, our non-resident fee is slightly better than their non-resident fee. We can't compete with the Lake Forest Health and Fitness or the hospital.
Actually, we compete very well with
Right,
them. you mean to
exactly.
say.
Really?
Very favorably to them in
We're
terms of our
dramatically
costs.
less
Oh,
expensive.
well, no, right, I'm sorry, right, you're right, we do. It's hard to look at something that's complete, everything is all access, all free, just the amount of amenities. That's what I was referring to. Looking at the one other in town, we have the small fitness centers that are popping up a little bit. We also see some challenges with the college. About as soon as they opened up, we saw a 350 member loss. Right now, they're having some challenges over there. They're restricting the amount of time that you can have access to the facility. They still do. Their priority isn't their community, the non-residents, what they call non-residents, so it's non-faculty, non-students. They're restricting when they can come out there. Their priority is their
At the
students.
college, they're putting those restrictions on?
Yes. They're also
There we go.
putting
So we're gonna get some
restrictions
migration
on
back.
the amount of age that you can be in the cardio rooms, but still they have racquetball courts, suspended track. They have a little golf hitting area. They also have the pool, so we still have a little bit of a challenge there. But we think we might be able to draw some people off of with those restrictions.
And the Punch Pass program that we've initiated, how's that
Oh,
been
yeah,
working?
it has gone over very well. We weren't expecting, I think we were expecting to sell 5, we sold 34. So that's been really good in the sense that in order to get a member rate, they had to be a member of the fitness center. So, not only did they purchase the all access pass, but then they purchased a membership on top of that. So we saw some greater than expected revenue for that fiscal year. So, any additional questions?
Any questions?
Then I recommend that the board approve the fitness center's fees as recommended.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recommendation is unanimous.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Rob.
How's it going?
Very well.
I'll try and get through this fairly quickly, but what we're looking at tonight is approval from the board to continue it with our look at our proposed lease agreement. And I'll get into some of more of the details of it in just a second. But the one thing, anyone who's been out to Elwood Farm recently knows what an amazing resource we have in our community, and also how unique it is when we look at other park and recreation facilities. If you compare us to, let's say, Sterling Hall, which is kind of standalone city, it's just the only city entity that's there. Elwood Farm is very unique because of the public-private partnership aspect of the facility, and as such, the fee systems are going to be a little bit different because of the demand for space and things like that. The Bruce Reed report that came out a few years back kind of dictated what fair market value is on the space that's out there, and we are just one of several tenants that utilize space between Lake Forest Open Lands, the Elwood Farm Foundation, the school district, which has also kind of restructured some of their usage and their agreements out there. So that's kind of just a little brief background. And when we look at our mission, it really ties in really well with the Elwood Farm community, basically getting people excited about nature, getting families outside, enjoying nature and enjoying what we have. And Elwood Farm is such a unique resource because of the beautiful buildings, the gardens, the wildlife center, the trails, and the park right next door. So we have this wonderful resource. And when we look at where we first started in 1997, when I started the Wildlife Discovery Center in old Studio D, I think it is now, and where we've grown, and now having moved to Elwood Farm back in 2002, utilizing a couple buildings and then quickly growing our programs over the years, and now to where we're at now, where we really are in need of the space that we're requesting. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. And why do we need this use agreement? We call it a use agreement because the city legally can't lease buildings from the city, so we call it a use agreement, which is going to be different from what the other tenants are doing with the Elwood Commission with their leases that will be in place. So we are just one of several tenants utilizing space. But when you look at the benefits of us having this use agreement, it really gives us the stability to move forward, because in order to have growth in our programs, we need to have that dedicated space in order to know that space is ours, that we can design new programs, grow those programs, and have a sense of consistency as we move forward with the years to come. And this use agreement will allow us to have that stability from a budgetary standpoint. Also, as we start writing more grants, we have a better idea on operational costs because of a set fee versus, let's say, if we were to go back to the Elwood Foundation and ask, let's say, an hourly rate. If we start looking at hourly rates, our annual usage of the space would be far higher than what we're asking for with the use agreement. So there is a cost benefit to having this annual use agreement in place. So that's one of the things we're looking at too. When you look at this is kind of an aerial of the actual the buildings themselves. It doesn't cover the outdoor areas, but the shaded blue areas are what we currently have. We've actually grown quite a bit in terms of the space we have allocated to us. When we first started, we actually had, let's see here, we had this building here and what's now the visitor center. That was basically what we had to start with. So we've actually grown quite a bit. Now we have a dedicated classroom with this new use agreement in place, and also 2 wonderful exhibit areas as well. We also have an administrative office too that's kind of a multi-use area. So we actually are able to meet all the needs that we have currently, and also moving forward with the years to come. So as you can tell, when you look at the overall campus or the overall buildings that are on site, we do have a nice little chunk of space. Right now we are about 2,200 square feet of usable space that we do maximize to its fullest. As far as what we're asking for, the use agreement that we are looking at is $24,974 annually. That does include utilities. So when you start looking at the 2,200 square feet and looking at what we're getting, our rate is substantially lower than what other tenants are paying. So that's one of the benefits too, as far as a city entity utilizing space there. So we think we have a pretty good deal overall for what we have, and allowing us to expand and continue to meet the needs of the programs itself. So that's what we're asking for, is approval for the agreement you have before you, and move forward to City Council. I'd like to take any questions you have.
The only question I have is that with the use agreement for the other entities, are we making sure they're paying street value to rent or lease space as opposed to,
Yes, just to clarify, the Bruce Reed study valued all the spaces and as a finished space and the type of requirements it had, whether it was a heated or a non-heated space, its square footage, in that kind of aspect. So from that perspective, every tenant, if they have a similar kind of space, if it's an office space and we have an office space, they're valued, the rent is valued similar for everybody. But if it was different needs for, like the market area where they have it's unheated and the doors open, they run their market, they pay a little bit different price for those kinds of areas. So this was a full vetting by Bruce Reed at the time to set the prices based on how the space had been finished out, so it's fair for whatever space that you end up utilizing. And the city's really, the perspective is, this is in essence an enterprise kind of facility. There's no tax dollars planned to go in there. The users of the space plus the one-time renters and events that are held out there need to cover all of the costs. So I think the other aspect that Rob didn't touch upon is that this use agreement also has us proportionally pay for our portion of what's called the common areas, use of the bathrooms, maintenance of the building, snow during the winter, all the things that have to take place in order for us to just be one of many tenants using that space. And let's face it, this facility's open from sunrise to late at night, 7 days a week. And so, we have access now to do that and be able to run our programs and benefit from, that availability. So that makes it a little bit different kind of facility. So really it is a use agreement for us. It will be leases set up for the other tenants that are out there. But everybody will be responsible for paying their proportionate fair share of what is needed in order to use those spaces.
is there a restriction on what type of tenant goes in the open spaces?
In the master plan, there was definition defined as the
Animals or
types. The types of, they were looking at people, or organizations that contributed to the overall intent and mission of the property. So that's really important to them. Obviously, the schools were always intended to be a component out there. Lake Forest Open Lands is out there, the Eloa Foundation, the gardens of Eloa. So it does have to fit within the mission of the property with the master plan.
And the Eloa Commission obviously they take a close look at that. Anytime there's an event out there, making sure that it fits into what the overall mission of the complex is. One of the things too with the common areas, we benefit too that we do get a greatly reduced rate when, let's say if we want to rent out the hay barn, which is a common space area, we do pay a fraction of the cost of what other organizations pay. So we also get some benefits in terms of the common spaces as far as being able to use that as we continue to grow our programs.
Can you, this is a strange question, I suppose, but what's the interplay between the Eloa Foundation, the Eloa Commission, and what does the city actually own down there?
Well, the city owns all of the property and currently manages all the property. It's in discussion right now with the Eloa Commission as far as help. They provide the day-to-day oversight right now and kind of coordinate the rentals out there, the maintenance needs of it, the day-to-day operations.
As a branch of the city?
As a city, right, has them as an appointed commission, and they have an employee that actually reports to the city manager who is helping assist with that right now. Now I know they're working out this arrangement as far as what their roles and responsibilities are, and that's something that's in the works right now. So I don't know the final description of it, but they would be in essence the on-site manager on behalf of all the tenants. And then the foundation is a fundraising arm on behalf of the Eloa Farms.
For the benefit of the city?
Yes, to support the mission of the Eloa Commission and the farm. I'm not sure if I'm answering that question right for you, but
Yeah, I'm just confused because the foundation is out raising money for the infrastructure that's already owned by the city, as I understand it then.
Correct.
And so that benefit versus then deciding who's the tenant. They don't really have a view towards that. The foundation doesn't
Well,
have a view towards.
The foundation is a fundraising branch of the LOA Commission. The LOA Commission then helps kind of look at what the potential users would be out there, in addition to the city, because the city is ultimately owns the property. So the master plan is an example. If there was an entity that wanted to come out there that didn't fit within the vision that was identified in the master plan, that would be, the LOA Commission would look at it and the city would look at that, if that helps. The fundraising, right now, this is the use agreement for our daily operational year-round costs. We haven't identified the next step, which would be the capital needs, long-term capital plan out there, and that's left, you saw in the use agreement, it's called the sinking fund in here. That does require some additional discussion on how that would work between the city's portion of it or the foundation's role in that, and that hasn't been resolved yet.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Rob, when I look at the map and the way that the space is separated, it strikes me that that's somewhat less than optimal for you guys. I don't know if it is or it isn't. It just strikes me that way. And my question is, how satisfied, as the leader of this wonderful thing you've created, are you with the space you have in its current configuration? And if you're not incredibly excited about it, is there something that you might, in the long term, want to do differently?
Well, if you look at the map, it looks like we're fairly spread out, but when you look at from a day-to-day operations, we actually function very well. When we moved from the from the visitor center here, when the administrative office moved over here, there was a little bit of adjustment, but actually we found out it worked out really well because it allows us to sort of spread out our operations a little bit more and have better supervision of not only the indoor areas, but also the outdoor areas, which are more up in this zone here, where the outdoor nature trail takes place. So for me, I've been very happy. I mean, we've been able to maximize every square inch of space we have. We still have the opportunity, once again, if we have a large event, we can move into the hay barn here, or we can utilize extra classroom space. Like when we have a birthday party, we'll rent out one of the common areas here for a fraction of the cost and still be able to meet the needs of our constituents. So I've been very, very pleased with what we have so far.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
This just strikes me as a strange agreement that the city is entering into a lease/use agreement with the city. It's kind of like I have a joint account with my wife and I'm charging her rent. So who's really, well, two questions. One, do we have this type of arrangement with any other buildings that we own? And relatedly, is this being driven by the city manager or the finance person as opposed to simply allocating the cost of providing this facility to the Wildlife Discovery Center? Why do we have a separate use agreement with them?
This is unique. We do not have a use agreement on any of our other facilities. However, this is also the only facility where there's multiple tenants utilizing the city facility currently under the city's management. Like Sterling, as we mentioned, it's just the recreation department using it. The golf course, it's just the recreation department using it because there's multiple tenants using space that we're trying to collect revenues from. They're trying to come up with some consistency for it. I think the other aspect is, in order to assist Joanne, who is with the LOA Commission, to help manage the overall budget, pay the bills, make sure that everybody's on the same approach as far as who gets to use what out here and why, and who's restricted from what areas and stuff. It helped her have some clarity as to what everybody was entitled to and what everybody was paying for. And so, for us, from a budgeting perspective, as Rob said, it just really does help us know, okay, we're set, we're going to be set for this for a while. You saw it went up by CPI annually. So we can properly plan now as far as working out these details. I think the other thing to realize too is when we started this process a while back, it's really grown. I mean, that's been so much more use out there. And we've kind of all evolved, I think, as a group out there. And I won't say there hasn't been some struggles with that evolution, but it has, at this point in time, I think, gotten to some comfort levels with everyone as to what's working and what wasn't working. I mean, the school thought they would need more space. They didn't need more space. So now we can open that up for the public's rentals and, have more public opportunity out there. Lake Forest Open Lands, initially what they thought they were going to use, they, have moved to Melody Farm, and they didn't need the same thing. So I think we've all been moving around a little bit, and I think I think Bob Kiley, the city manager, is feeling now that that's settled, and he really wants to put some, structure around all of this for everybody's benefit, and that's the intent of it. And, it is unusual, but I do think it is a helpful document to, set us on the right path for
Is
planning.
wildlife, are they the priority out there?
What's
So are they the priority out there? So in this use agreement, when you're signing it, if
Well-
they all of a sudden had to expand and there's open space,
It would have to come back to the planning commission, the plan committee of the commission, as well as the city, if any entity wants to expand or change its use, because it has to fit, again, within the mission of the master plan. So, Rob couldn't say, well, I'd like to now be in the in the market barn area, and if he's willing to pay for it, they can't just go in there because there's a group that's using it. So expansion potential has to be discussed amongst the campus is the best way I can describe it, and make sure it fits appropriately. The same thing if the LOA Foundation wants to do something different out there, they need to also bring that again back through all the tenants to make sure everybody is not impacted negatively.
and I guess that's my question, is because it's a unique situation, it's city on city, wouldn't Wildlife Discovery have that priority if they have a need to expand?
I couldn't say that we're a priority, but I think we would be certainly respected as far as bringing our proposals through.
Depends what leases they have with others, I suppose.
Well, that's what
right?
that's what I'm saying, is it's.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. There's been talk for a little while about possibly bringing back the historical greenhouse that was out there. So if that was to come up as a topic of discussion, there's a couple options where it could go out there. But again, all the groups should look at that and see whether or not there's, impacts or pros and cons, and give some feedback on that. The park board would be involved in that. If that was going to impact the Wildlife Discovery Center, we would bring that to you for your feedback, and that would go back to the city manager.
And I just to clarify, I don't want to belabor, but I'm not talking about kicking people out of where, I'm talking if there's a open space that's not being leased out, and someone wants to come in and lease it, and Wildlife Discovery is saying, we need to expand, is there?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Out.
Yes, the existing tenants out there have an opportunity to take advantage of space if it's changes or comes available. We had that chance with Rob. We actually talked about whether or not we could afford to take over what was the school area, the other classrooms. We just didn't feel right now our program growth has gotten to that level to support the rent that would be required. So we didn't go there. I mean, we didn't go that far, but yes, we could do that.
You meant the use fee, right?
Yeah.
The use fee, user fee.
Use fee,
Exactly.
because I think just draw the bright line here that isn't probably there. LOA Farms itself doesn't fall within the Park and Rec scope. We're only on the lessee or the lessor side of it, right? So we don't have the say-so on what happens outside of Rob's lease. Is that fair, Mary, or do we have the other side of the property similar to Sterling Hall, where we, under this board, we have directional authority over the LOA Farm property that the city owns?
The park board only has advisory capacity over the Wildlife Discovery Center space. The city of Lake Forest, which would be Bob Kiley, has authority over any of the other spaces.
We're just the blue space, that's all we are.
You have the blue space.
Any other questions? So you're seeking a motion to recommend approval of the use agreement with the
Correct.
city through April of 2024.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Recommended approval unanimously. All
Thank you.
right. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob, for everything you do.
We are on to the presentation by the NSSRA.
Oh, this is very nice.
Hello.
Thanks for having me out tonight. I'm Craig Culp. I'm the Executive Director at NSSRA. I was out to speak to the board earlier this year. I believe it was in March. It was much cooler then, so. And Mary asked me to come out just to do a quick refresher on the plan. The plan that I brought out last March is virtually identical to what we have here. The one addition that we made is we actually added a 20-year bond demonstration to even further shore up the financials compared to the plan that I brought on and shared with you in March. So that being said, I'd love to go through it with you quickly. I know that it is late. Please feel free to ask me any questions. So do I have control of this right here?
I believe so.
Fantastic. Middle button? No. Top one? Oh, I did the wrong one.
Oh, now you've done it.
There we go. Now we're back in. That one here. Okay. There's 5, so I thought I'd get to it sooner or later. You know, but. So our agenda for this evening, why does NSSRA, just a couple of items I want to run you through quickly is why does NSSRA matter to Lake Forest? What should you know about our strategic plan? What's wrong with our current facility? How do we propose to fix it? How do we expect to fund this? And what is Lake Forest's contribution? And what happens next? And then ultimately, today's requested action is that this board, the Lake Forest Park and Recreation Board, endorse NSSRA's capital and facility plan and direct staff to include the funding per partner capital expense as detailed in the plan as part of our NSSRA 2014 proposed budget. Why does NSSRA matter to Lake Forest? And this is very much review, so I'll go through it quickly. We have professionally certified personnel. The certification that our staff acquires is CTRS, Certified Therapeutic Recreation Specialist. All full-time staff are college degreed. And this year we're going to hit 600 employees, believe it or not, of which we have 43 employees from Lake Forest as our seasonal staff. We offer a variety of specialized programs from preschool through adult. And just a couple of examples of those are we have every Saturday we have our youth lineup, which is a series of 4 programs that's hosted either at Everett School and during the school year, and then at the rec department or at the rec center during the summer for youth with various disabilities to spend the entire Saturday with us. On the other side of the spectrum, our adult participants, our Special Olympic softball team, both teams, our home field this year was Waveland Park. And earlier this summer, just less than a month ago, Mary and her team participated in our staff versus participant annual game. And I guess I'm proud to say that the staff is 0 and 43 years against our participant team. So really, really neat. And then, as it says there, Lake Forest, one of the strengths of NSSRA is our specialized programming is just that. It's specialized programming. Our partners can't individually, it's difficult for them to individually duplicate the recreation experiences that we can offer as a cooperative of 13 districts. Why does NSSRA matter to Lake Forest? The services we provide include our vehicles. We have a 10-vehicle fleet. 6 of those vehicles are wheelchair accessible. You probably see them throughout the community on a daily and weekly basis. Another strength of NSSRA is our programming is done in our partner agency facilities. So, residents of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff and Wilmette get to participate in programs in Glenview and Winnetka and Lake Forest, et cetera. So we really have the widest range of facility opportunities of any agency in the area. And through the cooperation, we have numerous fiscal efficiencies amongst the 13 partners. Why does NSSRA matter to Lake Forest? This is just a review, same exact stats as we talked about in March. As you can see, we had 356. This is last full year, which is 2012. The good news is Lake Forest, like our other partners, are all trending upward. So we had 356 total registrations from 45 families. And then on the right 2 quarters of that table, you can see how our program registrations fall in children programs, adult programs, athletics, special events, ELA, which is our adult day program, inclusion opportunities, and camps. We had one board member make this request or ask this question. This is a comparison of member agency contribution, or the MAC, or the funding from each of our partners to NSSRA divided by the total registrations. So a cost per registration is broken down there on the right. On the high end, we're at $893 for the Village of Riverwoods, and on the low end, $157 per registration for the Park District of Highland Park. And our total MAC in 2012 was $1.939 million, and that's our last year of full stats of participation. This year, our MAC just went up for 2013 by just under 3%. It's at $1.99 million. And trends, participation-wise, still continue to grow. We went through this before, but I'll go through it quickly. What should you know about our plan, and our capital and facility plan? Process started in 2012 with an existing condition study and a space needs analysis of our current facility and what our staff spacing needs and programming needs would be. Strategic plan for NSSRA, 3-year plan, was approved in April of 2011. And the strategic initiative review and finalize a facility plan is where this specific goal falls under. And that goal is to find the most suitable permanent home for NSSRA with a partner agency. And I know we had a couple of questions about that last time I was out. The goal is to move in with one of our partner agencies to ensure efficiencies and to make sure that we're in a recreation setting that is safe. What else should you know about our plan? It is absolutely critical that we continue our programming model, which is to use the great facilities of our 13 partners. We are not interested in creating a rec center for ourselves. We need to address the issues with the current facility, which I'll review with you again. And then on an annual basis, because we do not have a facility identified yet, because the goal is to wait for the right opportunity with a partner, that this plan will be updated and reviewed annually by our facility committee and our board, and then shared with our partner boards. And again, without a specific building identified, we had to make assumptions to get estimates and numbers on paper. What's wrong with our current facility? This is our one and only meeting room downstairs in our office. Number one issue, which I shared with you before, is we do not have a secured, doored meeting space in the building to talk with our families about specific needs of their family members. As you can see in the back left-hand corner there, that doorway, 3 staff have their offices back there. The only access they have to that office is through this meeting room. And for fire codes, we cannot door off the stairwell that comes down to the right. In addition to that, we're almost at 600 staff. This is the one and only meeting room we have. We have tremendous training needs, and being able to fit approximately 25 people in here is not a useful space for us, so we have to farm out all of our training throughout the year. This is our building, a picture from outside. We're in an industrial park, basically between Dundee and Lake Cook. It's called the Sky Harbor Industrial Park. Rearview neighbor, or backdoor neighbor, is a FedEx hub. Across the street is Mark Vending. A commercial electric company is next to us, so just we keep good care, take good care of our building. It is our resource. We own it. We're good stewards of that resource. Location-wise, for safety reasons and being in an industrial park, just not congruent with the goals and mission of our agency. This is a picture from the back, and what I always like to say here is folks with disabilities not having, or anybody not having a safe drop-off point when it comes to children or individuals with disabilities is just not safe. 18-wheelers, which is one of the most common vehicles in our neighborhood or in our area, just don't mix well with children or individuals on the autism spectrum, period. We have very little storage space. We have less than 60 square feet. We spend over $5,000 a year in storage space. It's a waste of resources and our staff time. Again, back to privacy and very sensitive discussions our staff has to have with our participants' families. We have staff that share offices that are less than 80 square feet. it's impossible for us to have a secure discussion in that office space. And there are definitely opportunities and/or not opportunities. There's definitely subjects that families don't want necessarily shared publicly, even with one other individual. How do we propose to fix this? We're at 8,300 square feet, which is the middle of that table. Our space needs analysis targets 15,000 square feet of efficiently put together, either renovated or acquired space. And that's most evident in the common area / storage. We have no storage space, but we're only proposing to grow that space by 1,000 square feet because in being able to either construct or renovate space more efficiently, we'll be able to save a lot of space. What happens next if we fix this? Basically everything I ran through, which is detailed on page number 5, would be addressed. So we'd have private meeting rooms to interact with our families and participants, to talk about sensitive items. We would have some programming space and adequate training space, a safe location and an accessible building for the business that we do. Storage space would be addressed along with adequate office space for our staff to conduct their business. Total estimated funding for the new facility, $4.681 million, which includes interest. And it's broken out in this pie chart here. $3.2 million to the partner agency contribution, which is spread out in the 25-year plan in your document there. $500,000 from the sale of our building, $770,000 or 16% from outside funding, which includes our foundation, families, donors, et cetera, and an estimated $194,000 from our fund balance. The really great news here is our foundation. We already have $500,000 pledged to this effort, and we don't even have a building yet. And our foundation has pledged to run a capital campaign for this exact goal. And with $500,000 pledged, the originator of our foundation said, Craig, if you have a $270,000 hole to fill in a capital campaign, I can make 4 phone calls and get that for you. So please tell your partners that we fully intend to exceed your goal of $770,000 from outside funding, which on behalf of our partners, I said our partners would happily accept that at any time. So our foundation is extremely supportive. How do we expect to fund this? Amount to be financed, again, with an event horizon or an expected estimated time of this happening of 2018. We would have to finance $2.54 million. That's what we added to the plan, page 9, is we're showing a 20-year bond exercise at 3.95%, and I know that is, that number will be moving continually. We set this up at the end of July. It's already changed, So when we find the right opportunity, we will adjust things and bring those back, but this is a true estimate with, really conservative numbers. And what is Lake Forest contribution? Adding that bond rate compared to our last study, it actually dropped all of our partners' contribution just by a small percentage. But over a 25-year plan, the annual contribution for the building for the city of Lake Forest would average $14,492. And our estimated total capital cost for 2014, which is on page 14, is just a little less than that, $14,435. And just to bring you guys back up to a couple of items Mary and I shared last time, NSSRA in the past, in our 43-year history, we've never had an established capital plan or account. And that's what this plan is basically doing. It's establishing a capital plan and starting a 25-year plan towards reaching the goal of acquiring this new facility. So that is proposed to start in 2014. So what happens next? Here we are right now. We're communicating with our partner boards about this opportunity, while our board and facility committee are evaluating any opportunity for a building that comes our way. And then as we move forward, when an opportunity is realized our board will create an intergovernmental agreement that would then come to all 13 partner boards. And in addition to that, since our building is owned free and clear right now, in essence, the city of Lake Forest and our 12 partners own it. So the sale of that building also, according to our articles of agreement, will come to this board and to the city council for the sale of that asset when that occurs. And that is basically those 7 steps in synopsis for you. Our recommendation is that the Lake Forest Park and Rec Board endorses this plan, and as I said before, asks or instructs staff to include the 2014 portion of this capital plan as part of the NSSRA proposed budget process. I'd like to say thank you guys so much for your continued support, and I'd love to take any questions. This was much quicker than my talk in March, I know. And after that talk in March, I worked on it a little bit more, so there we go.
Well, help me understand what's different than what was presented in March and what's being asked of us that's different than it was in March.
There is no change. I mean, in essence, we added that bond study. That's the only change that's in there. And you know, as per Mary's request, she invited me back out to share this with the board. Maybe
Right. The
you can
reason it
address that,
came
Mary.
up was, you know, you've been seeing probably articles in the various newspapers recently about this plan, and most of the other park districts at the time that we were the first ones that Craig previewed back in March, and since then they've brought this out to a lot of the park districts and the other partner agencies, and their board actually endorsed it and said we are in support of finding a new home for NSSRA, and we're willing to put some money aside starting with this capital program, you know, so if the opportunity comes that way, you know, you're moving already down that path. We didn't ask that course of action back in March of the park board here. And so just to make sure we're on the record that, you know, we feel that this is a worthwhile direction and that we do support the long-term goal of a new home for NSSRA, that was the intent of bringing it back here to you tonight. And then with your recommendation, then we will be bringing this to council, you know, so that they are aware of this. We'll bring them up to speed, if you will, and they'll see tonight's meeting and hopefully the one we did back in March, because I don't know, a lot of the council may not have even the background as to what NSSRA and the services it provides, and since it is part of our special rec levy dollars, that they'll have, you know, be able to also do the level of authority that we do have to have in order to you know, move this forward in the future and stuff, and show that the city is behind this facility plan and capital plan that NSSRA is doing. So that was the intent, was just to kind of circle back, because we didn't ask, it was just informational back then. We didn't ask for, you know, you guys to weigh in on
Does this then also then go to the city council?
It will, correct. It will go to city council, though, via a committee discussion, also tied in with our special rec levy, and eventually into the budget process with the city. So we just, again, you know, it is a new component of how we're using our special rec levy, which is for a long-term goal of, you know, the acquisition of a building. So
Mary, just to clarify, there's a contribution that we make to NSSRA each year, and then what we're talking about here is another 14,000 and change that would go into a separate account that would be for the purpose of funding this expansion in your facility.
Correct, a capital reserve account that would be specifically for what we described here, for our goal of acquiring a new facility, yes.
So that's the commitment that we're being asked to recommend to the city council, that the city council would then make, that 15,000 or 14,500 a year.
correct.
Okay.
I think what you do is wonderful, and I think it provides such a necessary, you know, void in what our programming can provide. But if we go back to that, the breakout of what Lake Forest pays on an annual basis, I remember a spike from 13,000 and change in 14 up to 20. Why the jump?
Great question. Because we have an event or like a presumed acquisition of the building in 2018, we would start paying the mortgages or like the bond payment in 2019.
Gotcha.
And the way that our bond person set it up is that, you know, that's when that would start happening. And then if you look at page number 9, it shows the sale of the money, the sale of the building money going in when bonds are callable at year 8, working at $500,000 approximately from the sale of the building, plus any monies from the capital campaign that aren't in hand when the bonds payments start at that year 8 callable time, and I'm not a finance guy by any means, that would also be incorporated there. So on page number 9, it shows that 20 years of 2019 of the bonds being paid off. So the years leading up to that are, because we don't have a building identified, it's starting a capital reserve or a capital fund that we don't have to spread the cost of this expense over 25 years, while the staff and the board work on identifying the right opportunity.
These are just all estimates at the end of the day.
Correct. It's absolutely, the one thing I can promise is that the $4.861 million estimated cost, it will not cost exactly that. It will be off of that. That's all I can promise. But these estimates are also very conservative. You know, we're estimating $250 a square foot in building costs. If we find some existing space and renovate, you know, we're talking, our architects are saying, estimate-wise, you know, $120 to $150 a square foot, which cuts that. But we're laying out, you know, what a worst case or most expensive case scenario would be. So very conservative.
Great, thank you.
I would echo what Lauren said, and I would make a motion to approve what's proposed.
All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the capital and acquisition plan, as I understand it, correct?
Correct.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? The recommendation is unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
very
really
much for your
appreciate
time
all
this
the
evening.
support we get from all of our partners, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Craig, before you get away, I have to say, tomorrow is his swing golf outing and at Glenview. A big fundraiser for NSSRA, sold out
Wow,
foursomes with sponsorships that have gone very well, and should be a very exciting, fun day on the course.
It should be fun. Keep our fingers crossed. There's some rain forecasted, but
Come to DEERPATH next year.
That's right, that's right.
I think we're 2 years away. I think we'll met next year, and then Lake Forest and Lake Bluff the following 2 years. So can't wait to be up there. I've never played DEERPATH. I chase that silly little white ball around the course from time to time. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Agenda item 8, Director's Report.
Okay, I have a few items here. I just wanted to circle back with the board. The Northcroft Tennis Courts was on our capital program. We talked about it last month at the Committee of the Whole meeting. The decision that at that meeting was I felt I heard from the board that you liked the direction of looking at a resurfacing and repair option. However, the total dollars was, in some of the line items of that were estimates, and we're going to take that back and do a bid of that project so we can be assured of our pricing and bring that back to the board at a time when we have put the specs and the bids together and then get approval of that. That would allow us to do the work, though, next fiscal year, so we would roll those monies from this year forward to next year. The good news is, other than that, Northcroft, the path is in. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it or not, and all the driveways have been replaced, and really looks nice from that perspective. So 2/3 of the work that we wanted to get done out there has been done. So it's just the tennis courts. They're still playable this fall. It's, you know, they can use them up through this fall. It's not a problem with that. And we'll do a little bit more homework and get those bid numbers and bring them back through you, because it will be over $20,000 in cost for that project. So that was the first item. The next thing is, I wanted to mention, I did put on your space up here tonight as a resolution for a joint task force with the Lake Bluff Park District. It did go before council and was approved last night, so news releases were sent to the media today. And as mentioned, the opportunity here is to work with the Lake Bluff Park District and see where we can share services or where we can be more financially efficient, and what are the opportunities between our two communities to enhance things for the benefit of both communities. So we're really looking for this win-win opportunity there. And we haven't prescripted what they need to look at or anything, but I think there's different opportunities that have come up over the years, and I think it's our responsibility and diligence to take a look at that. So that will be a task force made up of 4 individuals from each community, and including residents at large. So on today's website, we did post the application for residents who are interested in joining that task force and being considered for assisting us with that research. And then we'll also have representation. There'll be 1 park board member and 1 city alderman who will be our contingency of our 4, and then Lake Bluff will be doing the same from their perspective as well. So, you know, I think we mentioned it at the foundation as well. So I think, you know, everyone I've talked with, I've seemed to hear good, positive things, that this is a good direction for us to consider. So I wanted to give you the resolution for your records. Next item is our picnic in the park is scheduled for this coming Saturday at Everett Park. And we tried one last year. It was our first time we did it out at Ellowa. And last year was Ellowa. Then earlier this spring we did one at Waveland. And it's a free program. You can come to the park. We have all kinds of fun activities planned. It's supposed to be a beautiful weekend. So we encourage everyone to come out and enjoy Everett Park and the amenities that it offers there. And we're going to be debuting pickleball. So if you have exciting interest in pickleball, or you don't know what it is and you want to come learn about it, it's your opportunity to do that. So that's this weekend. Last weekend, I'm sorry?
What time is that?
Time, Sally, 12 to 2? 12
On
to 2.
Saturday.
Yeah,
Okay.
this Saturday, correct. Last weekend on Saturday, we had our Adopt a Beach Great Lakes cleanup, and we did this year. Whole Foods helped sponsor it with us, and we did it with the McCormick Ravine Beach. Another group is doing Forest Park Beach, but we had an amazing turnout. We had almost 50 individuals show up to assist to work at McCormick, and so that was great. We had high school all the way up through adults and families that were there that spent the morning helping do that cleanup and really improving that facility and stuff. So, and our big thank you to Whole Foods for partnering with that and providing refreshments and some lunch for everybody that did come out and join us. So, Jeff had a few things that he wanted me to mention on his programs. Sailing has two big events this fall. The Great Oaks National Qualifier is going to be October 5th and 6th. And then we have our Halloween Spectacular at the lakefront for sailing, which is the end of October 26th and 27th. Wildlife Discovery Center will be doing their annual Croctoberfest on October 19th from 10 to 2. So again, we have some great activities coming up. But also we wanted to just mention Raging Kitchen. It has been such a big hit at the lakefront, is staying open on Saturdays and Sundays from 8 to 3 through October 13th. So we have a few more weeks to come down on the weekends, enjoy Raging Kitchen and what they have to offer. And then last but not least, the Fitness Center is currently running a no initiation fee for the month of September. So people can come get new memberships with us this month and kick off your fall and winter fitness regime. So I want to encourage that. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is the BMW. I know as a staff member, I couldn't have been more proud of being a part of that and getting to see that wonderful event come to the community. And I just wanted to share a perspective. I rode the bus over to the event, and I talked with staff or participants who were there who had come from Pennsylvania. There was other individuals on the bus who I was chatting with who were international guests who have come all the way to Lake Forest for this tournament. So you've very much had this feeling like we were attracting all these individuals in from all over the world to our community. It was really fun to kind of hear their impressions and things. But what really struck me also too, which was so special, was I walk up to the ticket booth and Jana Lee Eisenfeld is there selling the ticket booth. Gary Chan, who was here tonight, was scanning the ticket for you to come in. My neighbor Jason was on the 18th hole as a marshal. I mean, everywhere you turned and looked, it was your neighbor who was a part of this event and had such a wonderful time and just contributed so much to it. So it wasn't so much a city thing. It was a community effort, and I thought it was really cool. And I know a lot of you got out to see the golf event and got to be a part of it too. So I just, wanted to kind of share that as a staff member. Obviously a lot goes into these events, but, again, it was just kind of a magical moment, I think, also for us as staff working at that. And I hope you enjoyed it or got to enjoy that event being brought out to the community. So, and with that, I'm going to wrap up my comments tonight.
Thank you. Any comments by board members? If not, we have come to the end of our agenda, which leaves only a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
No gavel.
did not have to bang anyone.